Chaim. In today's very divided political climate, it happens once in a while that a politician makes a rally, everybody comes to the rally, and it could happen sometimes about that at their own rally, a politician could be booed at their own rally, right? It's not a common thing, it's pretty rare, but it does happen. But it used to be a very rare occurrence. However, according to a simple reading of the Gemara in Shabbos, it actually seems, Warren Bava Basra, sorry. It seems like that's exactly what happened in this week's Torah portion, right? In this week's Torah portion, Moshe Rabbeinu knows that it's going to be his time soon to leave this world, and he turns to Hashem, and he says, Hashem, please appoint a new leader. After I leave this world, I need somebody to lead the Jewish people. And Hashem tells him, I want you to appoint your student, Yeshua ben Nun, and make a special ceremony in front of all the Jewish people and put your hands on him, and some of your glory will go to Yeshua. You should place some of your glory upon him. So the Gemara says, what does it mean you should place some of your glory upon him? So it means that he only put some of his glory, not all of his glory. And the Gemara writes that Moshe's face shone like the sun, while Yeshua's face only shone like the moon. And the elders of that generation who were at this ceremony, they made a big ceremony to honor Yeshua. So Moshe placed his hands on Yeshua's head, and the elders of the generation are looking at Yeshua, and they called out, Oy lanu la'isa busha, oy lanu la'isa klima. How woe unto us for that great embarrassment. Woe unto us for the great humiliation. And this seems a little bit out of place, right? We're talking over here about Yeshua. We're not talking over here about Donald Trump, Kamala Harris. We're talking over here about...
You get shot at.
We're talking here about Yeshua ben Nun. Right? Somebody who held up the sun in the middle of the sky. Somebody who split the Jordan River, lifted up a pillar of water 300 kilometers into the sky, right? Someone who conquered Eretz Yisrael for the Jewish people with tremendous miracles. He blew the shofar and the walls of Yericho sunk into the ground, right? And at his inauguration ceremony, the elders of the generation get up and start booing him, right? Woe unto us for this great embarrassment.
Even Kamala Harris said that it was terrible that people were making riots when people were talking.
Right? If they could agree on that today, certainly at the inauguration of Yeshua, they should have had such an agreement. So first of all, what does it mean, terrible embarrassment to have a leader like Yeshua? We should be proud to have a leader like Yeshua, right? Second of all, even if for whatever reason you can make the argument that there is some sort of embarrassment involved, this doesn't seem to be the right place to voice that feeling, to voice that emotion. You can find a better time, a better place, not at his inauguration. Third of all, why would they say embarrassment? It's not an embarrassment. It might be a loss, right? They can mourn the passing of the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to pass away. They could say, woe unto us for this great loss. What does it mean, woe unto us for that great embarrassment? So it seems a very strange story that the Gemara tells us. So we need to understand what exactly is going on. What exactly is going on over here? So the Gemara in Bava Metzia, Daf Pei Hey Amud Beis, tells us that Rabbi Yehuda Anasi once was talking to Eliyahu Hanavi, and he said to Eliyahu Hanavi, "Is there anybody in this generation, any people in this generation, who are on the level that whatever they ask Hashem for, Hashem will fulfill? If they pray to Hashem, whatever it is, Hashem will give them whatever they request." So Eliyahu Hanavi says, "Yeah, there's a group of people, Rabbi Chia and his sons, right? Rabbi Chia and his sons." So Rabbi Yehuda Anasi says, "Really? Rabbi Chia and his sons, whatever they pray will happen. We got to get them to pray that Mashiach should come, right? We got to get them to pray together that Mashiach should come." So Rabbi Yehuda Anasi makes a whole plan. He's going to prepare. It's going to be he declares a fast day. He gathers everybody in shul, and as they're getting ready to pray, suddenly a bear runs into the shul and chases everybody out. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi realizes, this is, I guess it's not really, this is not the will of Hashem at this time. So he got the message. But the Gemara tells us a little earlier on the page, right? What's so special about Rabbi sons? So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, he's teaching his students, and he says, how great are the deeds of Rabbi. So his student, Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi, says to him, Yehuda Nasi, you also did very great things. You're the author of the Mishnah. You compiled the Mishnah. Are Rabbi's deeds greater than yours? Yehuda Nasi says, yes, they're even greater than my deeds. What Rabbi did for the spread Torah, for Jewish education, is even greater than what I did. What did Rabbi do? So the Gemara tells us that Rabbi saw that there was a big problem. This was a little shortly after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, right after the Bar Kokhba rebellion. It was very difficult for Jewish people to study Torah, especially for children, to get a Jewish education. And Rabbi knew he had to do something about it. So what did he do? He decided he's going to become a farmer. He went out, he got a plot of land, and he started plowing the field. Then he started to plant flax, right? He planted flax, waited till the flax grew, he cut the flax, then he soaked it in water, or whatever chemicals he mixed in, he dried out the flax and turned it into linen. He spun it into threads of linen. Then he made long linen ropes, and then he started to spin the ropes together and to form large nets. And he placed the nets into the woods, and he became a hunter. He got a new job, right? He was no more a farmer, now he became a hunter. He went out, he's now a hunter, and he starts catching deer, right? He caught a bunch of deer, he shechted them, he distributed the meat to poor people, to widows and orphans, and he took the skin of the deer and he began processing them. Now he turned into a tanner, right? He went from a farmer, a hunter, and now he's a tanner. And what?
You gotta make a living.
So this is not for a living. So he starts processing the skins, and finally he turned them into parchment. And then he sat down and he began to write down. Right on these parchments, he began to write down the Torah. He wrote Chumash one scroll with Chumash Bereshis, another scroll with Chumash Shemais, another scroll with Chumash Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. And then he took these 5 scrolls and he began to travel. He went out into the countryside. He came to a little town. And in this town, there was no school. So he gathers all the children of the town and he says, we're going to learn the Torah together. He turns to one of the children. He says, here, I'm going to give you a scroll with Chumash Bereshis, another child Chumash Shemais, another child Chumash Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. And he starts teaching them. And he spends a long time till each one knows their Chumash. And then he turns to the one who knows Chumash Bereshis. He says, I want you to teach Chumash Bereshis to all of your friends. I want you to teach Chumash Shemais to all of your friends. Right? As soon as he finishes, what does he do? He goes back and he starts hunting again. Some more deer, starts drying out more skins, and he does it again. And he went around from one city to another, spreading Torah, teaching children the Torah. Right? Today it would be a lot easier to just order on Amazon a bunch of sets of Chumash. In those days, it was actually a lot of work. Now, of course, what was so special about this? There are many rabbis who spent their whole lives. Rabbi Nasi spent his life educating. What was so special about Rabbi Chia, right? So it's pretty clear that what was special was not the fact that he taught Torah to children, but that he was willing to become a farmer, to become a tanner, to become a hunter, right? Something that many rabbis might have been a little hesitant to do, right? Many rabbis might have said, you want me to be a rabbi? I'll be a rabbi. But you want me to become a hunter? Me to become a farmer? That doesn't sound like something I would want to do, right? It's beneath my dignity, beneath my honor. It's not proper for me to do that. I have to maintain a certain level of dignity, a certain level of respect. The story is told about a chassid who traveled to Premishlan. He wanted to get a bracha from Reb Meir, the tzaddik Reb Meir of Premishlan. So he travels to Premishlan, but it's a very long journey, and he gets to Premishlan late at night. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't know what to do. He goes to the shul, but the shul is locked. And he's looking around, and he notices one house in the city has lights still on. All the other houses are dark. One house has lights on. He goes, he knocks on the door, Guy opens the door, he welcomes him in. What are you doing in town? He says, I'm here to get a bracha from the Rebbe. Oh, very nice, wonderful. You can stay by me. Here, let me give you some food. Probably didn't eat. No, I didn't eat all day. His host prepares him some food, gives him a bed to stay in. The next morning he gets up and he goes to shul and he realizes that his host was Reb Meir from Mishlan himself, right? The Rebbe himself. He had never met the Rebbe before. And he discovers that his host was the Rebbe. He feels very bad. I troubled the Rebbe in the middle of the night. He cooked food. He got plates and cutlery. He served me. He made my bed. Terrible sin I committed. He runs to the Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, you have to forgive me. I didn't realize who you were. You have to forgive me. Please be meichel me for a terrible sin that I did. So the Rebbe says, I'll forgive you on one condition. What's the condition? Every time you come near Mishlan, I want you to stay at my house. He says, no, Rebbe, I'm trying to atone for that. I'm asking you forgiveness for that. So he says, no. You know how much I want to do this mitzvah? Nobody ever wants to stay by me. They think I'm Rebbe. It's beneath my dignity, beneath my for me to do such a thing. But all my life, I would love to do this mitzvah, right? You gave me the opportunity. You want me to forgive you? The only way I'm going to forgive you is if every time you travel from Yerushalayim, you stay in my house. Right? You had no choice. You wanted the Rebbe to forgive him, so you had to accept this condition. Right? And we find this with many tzaddikim. Reb Shai of Kerstir is also famous for this. He would also kind of disguise himself and host all the poor people in town. Nobody even knew, like, the people who were staying at his house didn't really know who the host was. They thought he was one of the waiters or something. So there are some people who might look at a mitzvah and say, this mitzvah is beneath me. It's not on my level. I'm a respectable person. This mitzvah is not for me. But somebody who really treasures the mitzvah, who recognizes the importance of a mitzvah, who realizes there's no such thing as a mitzvah that's beneath my dignity. Right? The Pasuk in Shmuel tells us that when the Aron HaKodesh was being brought to Yerushalayim, David HaMelech went out into the streets and started to dance in the streets. And this was very unusual. A king who's jumping around and dancing. And David's wife, Shaul's daughter, Michal Bas Shaul, was very upset by this. Right? And she says to David, this is beneath your dignity. You're a king. You're supposed to sit in your royal carriage. You're supposed to watch all of the regular folk dancing. But you're supposed to sit on your royal throne. And David says, I don't mind embarrassing myself even more. It's not an embarrassment if you're doing a mitzvah, if you're honoring Hashem. And the Gemara tells us that David's wife, Michal, was punished. And because of this comment that she made, she didn't have children until, I think, the day she passed away. She had a child. But until then, she didn't have any children. The Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yutes, tells us about different Amayroyim, very important rabbis in the times of the Talmud, who before Shabbos, they would go out and start preparing food for Shabbos. They would chop wood. One of them would chop wood. The other one would skin the fish. The other they would start doing all different tasks. Rab Nachum Bar Yitzchak was walking in the street carrying food and vessels in honor of Shabbos. And some people in the street say, Rabbi, this is not proper for a rabbi such as yourself to be schlepping boxes in the street for Shabbos. And he says, a couple of months ago when Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, two of the greatest sages in the generation, came, I ran to serve them. Right? Is Shabbos any less special than Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi? Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Raditchev, every year before Pesach, he would go out on Erev Pesach and go to the river and get water. Mayim Shalani, he would get water to prepare the matzah. He would get water to prepare the matzah. And he would schlep a bucket of water through the street. And one time his Hasidim felt that it wasn't proper that the Rebbe should be schlepping buckets of water through the street. So they said to him, if you want to do the mitzvah, you can do the mitzvah, but we can get you a nice wagon. You can sit in the wagon. You don't have to run through the streets schlepping water from the well. You could sit in a wagon. It'll be a lot more respectful, a lot more honorable for you. He said, he said to his Hasidim, one day I'm going to come up to heaven, and they're going to bring out all the mitzvahs that I did, right? They're going to bring out all the mitzvahs that I did, including this mitzvah. He says, do you think I want to share this mitzvah with a horse? Right? Do you think I want to share this mitzvah with a horse?
That's a double mitzvah then.
A double mitzvah? To share with another Jew is a mitzvah. To share with a horse, I don't know. To share food with a horse might be a mitzvah, but to share a mitzvah with a horse, I don't think that's a mitzvah. Right?
We'll have to get back to you on that one.
You think I want to share the mitzvah with a horse? Kind of. The Rebbe once came into 770, and as he was walking to his seat, he noticed that there was some paper that somebody had thrown on the floor, and before the Rebbe came in, they kicked it under one of the benches, right? Because when the Rebbe came in, they didn't want it to be garbage on the floor, so they kicked the paper under one of the benches. So the Rebbe stopped, he bent down, and he picked up the paper, and he brought it with him to the front of the shul. He put it on his table. Of course, the Chassidim saw the Rebbe's carrying a piece of garbage. They quickly removed it and threw it out. And somebody turned to the Rebbe afterwards and that's not really proper for you to bend down and start picking up papers in shul. And the Rebbe said, don't you know, Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Yakar, one of the primary teacher of Rashi, right? Rashi refers to him as Moiri Zakeni, my elderly teacher. So he was known. The Chassidim brings down about him that he had a very, very long white beard, and he would walk around the shul sweeping the shul with his beard. Right? That was his thing. Right? That was his thing. Right? You have a long beard, you can put it to good use. You don't have to buy a broom. You could use your beard to sweep up the shul.
I see his nicely rolled up.
So you got to unroll it all the way to the floor.
Growing up,
What?
the principal in elementary,
Yeah.
Rabbi Schmutz, he now lives there in Boynton Beach. He would be in the hallway, walking the hallway, picking up garbage.
We should all be doing that, right?
That's why I put it there. So people... I joke.
We should all be doing that, right? Unfortunately, many of us feel that picking up garbage from the floor of the shul is not something that's, might be a little beneath us. Right? We could hire a janitor to do it. And it's nice, but do we want to share the mitzvah with a janitor? Right? I mean, wouldn't we love to get the mitzvah ourselves? But unfortunately, many of us have a hard time doing something which seems embarrassing, which people might laugh at, people might have a hard time looking at, look at us and look down at us for such a thing. In Novardok, the new students who came would go through a special hazing process, right? There's a special, one of the things they would put new students through, they would give them these strange tasks that they had to do, right? For example, they would tell them to go to the bakery and buy a hammer, right? This new student in the Varduk who's never not really familiar with the city very well, he goes down to the bakery and he said, "I'd like to buy a hammer." They're like, "Sorry, we don't sell hammers here. You can go next block to the hardware store." No, I got to buy a hammer here." They're like, "Sorry, we don't sell it." And he says, "Well, we have to figure out a way to get a hammer over here. How can we get a hammer here?" And everyone's like looking at him, and people start talking about him, pointing at him, laughing at him. And his job was to stay in the bakery until he somehow managed to get a hammer. Maybe he convinced somebody to get a hammer for him. I don't know how he had to pull it off, but that was part of the job. That was part of the task of a new student in Novardok. Why was that part of the task? Why would they give them strange jobs like this? That's an example. There were similar things, but it's an example. Because they wanted to show him that if you have a job to do, it doesn't matter how many people are laughing at you, you're going to find a way to do it. Right? And that was obviously the job. It wasn't just a job. That was the whole outlook in the yeshiva. Right? They would make it clear to a student that, even if what you're doing seems strange and everybody's looking at you, that's what you got to do, right? When it comes to doing a mitzvah, your own honor and dignity and how people look at you is not something which should be taken into account. The Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, tells us a famous story of Yisachar from the village of Bar Koi. right? He was a very wealthy man, a very wealthy businessman, and he heard that there was a open position. The position of Kohen Gadol was open. Apparently, the previous Kohen Gadol wasn't a big tzaddik, and during Yom Kippur he had died when he tried to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. This was a yearly thing, by the way, in the second Beis Hamikdash. Pretty much every year the Kohen Gadol died. They had to appoint a new Kohen Gadol.
It's called a suicide mission.
Right? That was the thing. Every year after Yom Kippur they had to find a new Kohen Gadol.
For a time.
What?
For a time. For a time.
It was the whole. I mean, most of the second Beis Hamikdash, there were, I think, two Kadam Doilim who were there there were two tzaddikim who were there for a long time, and besides that, pretty much every year there was a new Kohen Gadol, right? Some years even more. Some years more than one Kohen Gadol. So Yisachar hears there's an open position of a Kohen Gadol. He thinks that would make a good job for me, right? The Kohen Gadol. What better position can I ask? You know, I'm rich and I have everybody respects me. But can you imagine if I would be a Kohen Gadol? I'm not sure if you. I assume he was a Kohen. It's not so clear either, but I think he was a Kohen. And I mean, it's pretty clear from the Gemara that he was a Kohen, but he figured he wants to get the title of a Kohen Gadol. So he goes to the Roman governors and he offers a large sum of money, and they say, okay, you're the next Kohen Gadol. So he comes to the Beis Hamikdash he gets the new robes of the Kohen Gadol. He walks in, he's very proud. I'm the Kohen Gadol. Everybody stand up when I walk in. And all the Kohanim stand up, of course, to honor him. And then one of them hands him a knife and is like, hey, there's a cow there you have to slaughter. And he's like, no, that's not. That's part of the job. And they're like, yeah, that's part of the job. And he says, well, I'm supposed to touch that cow? I get one of my servants to do it. And they're like, no, that's, if you want to be a Kohen Gadol, this is the job of a Kohen Gadol, right? I'm saying.
The Roman family didn't tell you the job description.
Slaughter the cow. What do I do afterwards? Well, then you have to take a cup and fill it up with the blood of the cow and bring it to the Mizbeach. And he's like, really? I have to dirty my hands with the cow and the blood? So he says, I'm going to go get. He goes out. He comes out with this expensive pair of gloves, right? And he comes in. He's like, I'm going to wear them. I'm not going to get my hands dirty. I'm going to do it with my fancy gloves. And after I finish the job, I'm going to change the gloves, put on a new pair of gloves. And they tell him, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. You're only allowed to have 8 garments, right? You're only allowed to have 8 garments. You're not allowed to have 10 garments. You're not allowed to put on gloves too. And he says, I'm sorry, I'm not. I don't need to follow all the rules. I followed most of the rules. We did a good job. I'm going to slaughter the cow. I'm going to take the blood, but I'm not going to do it with my hands. My honor is more important than these minutiae of the laws, these halachas of Kohen Gadol. Your hand had a chatzitza. My hands have to touch the cup, has to hold the cup. I don't care about these laws. My honor is more important. Says the Gemara in Psachim that this was one of the 4 times when the walls of the Azara spoke up. And the walls of the Azara spoke up and they said, get rid of this Yisachar Ish Kvar Bar Koy, who thinks that his clean hands are more important than the halachas of the Avodah. And the next day is a big party. The king, Alexander Yanai, I guess this wasn't the Romans, I guess it was the time of the, I'm not sure who he bought the Kohen Gadol from. I guess from the Hashmonaim was also a pretty corrupt dynasty. So King Alexander Yanai makes a big party, and he invites to the party all of the honorable people, all the important people of Yerushalayim, including the Kohen Gadol. And he comes to the king's party, and there's a big barbecue going on. They have lots of meat, right? All different types of meat. The best meat in the world is being served, and the king and the queen are sitting there. And the king and the queen are sitting there, and they're eating, and the king picks up his meat. He has a fresh piece of goat meat, right? Freshly grilled, medium rare. I'm not sure how exactly he prepared it, with good barbecue sauce on it. And he turns to the queen, and he's like, goat meat is the best meat. And his wife like, goat meat? Nah, lamb is much better than goat meat. And the king's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Goat meat is much better than lamb. And the king and the queen start arguing. Right? So how do they resolve their argument? We got to call in an expert. Who's an expert on meat? The Koyanim in the Beis Hamikdash. They eat meat all day, every day. So the hundreds of animals are being brought through the Beis Hamikdash: cows, sheep, goats. Right? The Koyanim taste all different types of meat. So we'll call in the Kohen Gadol. We'll ask his opinion. So they call in. You can call in Yisachar. Right now he's. I don't think now he's worried about his hands getting dirty, but right now he's wearing his beautiful clothes and he comes before the king, and the king tells him, me and my wife are having an argument. We want to know what's better, lamb or goat. And Yisachar goes, goat? Woo! Like waves it away with his hand. He's like, nah, lamb is much better. As a matter of fact, I can prove from the Torah that lamb meat is better because Hashem, right? Hashem, of course, knows which meat is the best. No one could argue with Hashem's taste. And Hashem says that the daily carbon, which has to be brought twice a day, should be a lamb, right? So you can't say that goat meat is better than lamb. Who would think that goat meat is better? And he waves it away with his hand. And the king says, listen, if you want to disagree with me, that's okay. We ask your opinion, you can say your opinion. But to wave away my opinion with your hand like that? Such disrespect? Guards, take him out and chop off his hands. So Yisachar starts pleading to the king, no, your majesty, you can't do this to me. The king doesn't want to hear him. The guards take him outside, and he turns to the king's guard. He says, please, I'll pay you whatever it takes. You got to let me go. And the guard's like, if I don't listen to the king, he's going to chop off my hands. Right? I don't want to get this king angry. Right? If this is what he does to you for making such a comment, if I don't listen to him, who knows what he's going to do to me? So Yisachar says, listen, okay, I'll pay you a large sum of money if you chop off my left hand instead of my right hand. Okay, that's not a problem. Chops off his left hand. He brings him back to the king. He's like, your majesty, we chopped off his hand. And the king's like, you did the wrong hand. Take him out again and chop off the other hand. Right? So they chopped off both of his hands. Right? And the Gemara says the hands that he thought his hands, the cleanliness of his hands were more important than the halachas of the avodah. So he lost his hands. And this is something we all have to realize, right? We all have to realize that, there are times when we have a mitzvah which we might feel is, none of us are on, Yisachar's level, but we all have in our own lives a mitzvah which we might feel is not on our level, is beneath our dignity. And we have to train ourselves. We have to realize what a mitzvah means. We have to realize that there's no such a thing, a mitzvah that's beneath my dignity. The greatest honor, the greatest thing we could do is a mitzvah. The Gemara in Subais, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph tells us that Shmuel Bar Yitzchak used to go every time there was a wedding. He used to go and dance in front of the chastan and the kala. He knew it's a big mitzvah to make a chastan and a kala happy. And he would take 3 myrtle branches, 3 hadassim, and he would juggle them and dance in front of the kala, juggling the hadassim. When Rab Zera heard about this, he said, he's embarrassing the rabbinate, right? He's demeaning his important position, right? He wasn't very happy, Rab Zera. Eventually, Rab Shmuel Rab Yitzchak passed away, and everybody came out to honor him at his funeral. And a pillar of fire descended from the heaven, and according to the Gemara in Yerushalmi, it was shaped like a myrtle branch, like a branch of a hadas. And when Rav Zera saw this, he said, "Ahanile shoitisa l'sab." There's 3 different versions actually of Rav Zera's comments. The first version is Ahanile shoitisa l'saba. His branch is what helped him achieve this great level. Right, the fire coming down from heaven, the Gemara says, happens to 1 or 2 people in a generation. And we're talking here not in our generation, right? We're talking over here in the generation of the Mishnah and the Gemara, right? And in those generations, it happened once or twice in a generation, right? And Rab Zera says, how did he achieve such a great level? Through his branch, Shaitisa. Another version of the Gemara is the Hanile Shtusa L'Saba. It was his silliness or his foolishness that enabled him to achieve such a high level. The fact that he was willing to look like a fool, but it was what enabled him to reach such a high level. And the third version of his comment is Ahanile Shitasi L'Saba. His approach, his shita, his approach to serving Hashem, the fact that he was willing to demean himself and he overlooked his own honor in order to do a mitzvah is what enabled him to achieve such a high level. And this explains the chidah, is what's going on with Yeshua. right? Yeshua bin Nun. Yeshua bin Nun was Moshe Rabbeinu's, not just his student. Moshe Rabbeinu had many students. Yeshua was Moshe Rabbeinu's servant, right? He was Moshe Rabbeinu's servant. What happened? What happened was Moshe Rabbeinu came down from the Torah and he started teaching Torah to the Jewish people. And all the Jewish scholars wanted to learn Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu was one person. He had a limited amount of time. Everybody got their turn in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. But all the scholars of the generation said, we wish we could spend more time with Moshe to learn more from him. Maybe that way we could learn more Torah, we could elevate ourselves, reach a higher level. And Yeshua bin Nun, who is one of the younger students of Moshe, says, I have a great idea. Moshe Rabbeinu, he might... my time I could learn with Moshe Rabbeinu is limited, but Moshe Rabbeinu needs a servant. He needs somebody to bring him food, right? Go outside to collect the mun for him, maybe clean up his tent, set up the benches in the shul when he's teaching, maybe clean up the floor a little bit. I'll do that job. It'll enable me to spend more time with Moshe Rabbeinu. That way I can learn from him. It might not be direct learning, right? But just being in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu. What an honor, what a merit. The other Torah scholars are looking at Yeshua and they're like, really? You're going to become a servant? That's what you're going to do? And this went on for 40 years. For 40 years, Yeshua was Moshe Rabbeinu's servant. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu is about to pass away. And Hashem says to Moshe, I want you to take some of your glory and put it on Yeshua. And it became clear to everybody that Moshe's face looked like the sun. Yeshua's face looked like the moon. On a simple level, we're expressing that Moshe Rabbeinu was greater than Yeshua. But the Chidah says that's not what the Gemara is telling us. The Gemara is telling us, why does the moon shine? Why does the moon shine, Yossi?
Because we want light in the night.
But how does the moon give off light?
From the sun.
Oh, the moon gets its light from the sun. The Gemara is telling us, how did Yeshua achieve his greatness? How did Yeshua stop the sun in the sky? How did Yeshua sink the walls of Yericho? How did Yeshua split the Jordan River? Because he was like the moon. He absorbed the light of Moshe Rabbeinu. He spent every moment serving Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's how he absorbed the great light of Moshe Rabbeinu. The other scholars come along and they're like, wow, look at what Yeshua accomplished. We could have also accomplished the same thing. Why didn't we do it? Because we were embarrassed. We felt it was beneath our dignity. Oy lanu la'isa busha, woe unto us for that embarrassment. They're not talking about an embarrassment they're experiencing now. They said la'isa busha. They're saying that embarrassment that prevented us from reaching the level of Yeshua. We could have also been on his level if we wouldn't have been so worried about our honor and our dignity. We also could have spent a little more time with Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is something that we all have to realize, right? The first halacha in Shulchan Aruch, right? A person al yevish im ne'am aligim. The first thing in the first halacha in Shulchan Aruch tells us that if you want to do mitzvahs properly, you shouldn't care about what people around you say, about how people look at you, about how this will look, how this will demean whatever honor and dignity I think I have. We have to recognize what a mitzvah is. Conclude the final story. Rabbi Tzia in Abba Shol, one of the leading Sephardic Talmidei Chachamim of our generation, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivas Parshas Yosef in Yerushalayim. He met with Chaim the banker. Chaim the banker didn't grow up religious, but he was inspired by the Rosh Yeshiva, by Rabbi Tzia in Abba Shol. He began to learn Torah with him and become close to Torah and Yiddishkeit. And he began to observe mitzvahs and learn Torah. But it was very difficult for him to, in his job as a banker, he was a bank manager of some important bank in Yerushalayim, and he felt that on the job he couldn't show that he's religious. Right? Everybody else in the bank were, it's a secular people. They kind of looked down at the outdated religious people, and he felt that it's something he can't show. So when he walked into the bank, his yarmulke, tzitzis disappeared. His food, I guess, was kosher, but he didn't make any blessings. And he realized that this was not the right thing and that it has to change. And he spoke to the Rosh Yeshiva about it. And the Rosh Yeshiva explained to him, this is something you have to be proud of. You're doing a mitzvah, right? You shouldn't be embarrassed of the fact that you're doing a mitzvah. And he worked up the courage and finally decided, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to go to the bank. When it comes time to eat, I'm going to go and I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to take out a siddur, make a bracha. I'm going to put on my yarmulke. I'm going to bend. I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to bench. And who cares what people say? Who cares what people how people look at me? And he's getting ready. It comes lunchtime, and he's getting ready to take out his yarmulke, show everybody that he's religious. And suddenly, the CEO of the bank comes in with the president and the vice president, and they come in with this rich Italian coin collector. And he's coming to the bank. He wants to rent a safe deposit box to put his, multi-million-dollar coin collection there. And everybody's gathering around to look at this the coin collection. He's showing everybody some of his coins, some of his $1,000,000 coins.
No.
And Chaim feels, this might not be the best time for me to pull out my yarmulke, right? We have the president and the CEO over here. Maybe tomorrow I could start doing it. Tomorrow might be a better time. This is not really the best time for me to pull out my yarmulke and my siddur, right? And as they're walking through the bank, everyone's gathering around to meet this rich coin collector. And suddenly, the box with coins falls out of his hands, opens up on the floor, and coins shoot out in all different directions, right? Coins start rolling under desks and chairs and go into corners of the room, and the CEO of the bank says, everybody, down on your knees where we're finding all the coins. Everybody gets down in their fancy business suits. The CEO of the bank, the president, the vice president, they're crawling under benches and tables and looking for coins. And Chaim, first Chaim sees it. He's like, maybe this would be a good time to run off and bench and put on my yarmulke when nobody's looking, when they're all busy, trying to find a coin. But then as he's looking, he thinks to himself, everyone's crawling around on the floor. Everyone's, wearing their expensive suits, and they're crawling around on the floor, getting their suits dirty. But they don't care. They're not worried about what people are saying about them. Why is nobody worried about what people are saying about them? Why is the CEO of the bank not embarrassed to crawl around under the tables in his fancy suit? It's because he knows that he's picking up multi-million-dollar coins, right? When you're collecting diamonds, you're not worried about what people are saying while you're collecting diamonds. And Chaim thinks to himself, I'm also collecting diamonds. Should I worry about what people say when I'm collecting diamonds? And he decided, I don't care who's here, in front of everybody. Obviously, I guess he probably helped them collect the coins. I don't think he did it while they were collecting the coins, but as soon as everything settled down, he proudly took out his yarmulke, took out his siddur, and benched, and he said, I'm collecting diamonds right now. I'm collecting multi-million-dollar coins. I don't care what people have to say about it. So we should all realize that we are all collecting diamonds, right? We're collecting diamonds. The fact that our hands have to get a little dirty while we're collecting diamonds, right? The fact that our perceived honor and dignity might take a little hit and people might look at us a little differently is not something that we have to worry about or even think about. They're taken into consideration when we're collecting diamonds. And we have to realize that ahani le'shtuse l'saba, the foolishness, or what looked like foolishness, right? Juggling of Rab Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, right, is what enabled him to achieve such a high level. And we all have to realize that Yeshua, by becoming Moshe Rabbeinu's servant, by sweeping the floors of Moshe's tent, was able to achieve the greatness that he achieved. And we should all realize that we're all collecting diamonds, and we don't need to worry about what people say or how people look at us, what people say about us. We should collect as many diamonds as we can. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim.